thanks for joining us, Paul. So it's coming up to the big 30th anniversary. That's what everybody's talking about at the weekend.
Yep.
How and where did it all begin?
It began with me getting bored behind a desk in Fenners, where I worked as a shipping clerk. I did 12 years there. I was approaching I was 29 years old. I was like, I can't see myself doing a life of this, and at that point, I was a music fanatic. Had a massive record collection, probably one of the biggest in the city for somebody of my age. And all my spare time was spent going to gigs, So I thought, well, what do you want to do? I thought, well, music place. So I got the cheapest place in town, which was the Adelphi.
So did it primarily start as a music venue, and then you kind of realised that there was room for expansion?
No, the place that I took over was a sort of working men's club with a gay night, which meant that the working men were afraid to come anywhere near the place. The gay night was actually a Sunday lunchtime, and it was a third of the turnover. The only thing that happened apart from the gay night was that they had several dominoes teams, several darts teams, and several pool teams, all of which I got rid of fairly quickly.
So you've been here for 30 years.
Yeah.
How long has the Adelphi been here then?
I believe it opened in 1917 as the Victory Club, so we're approaching the Adelphi's 100th anniversary. It wasn't called the Adelphi. As I say, it's been called several things over the years, but it first opened as a licensed club in 1917.
Where does the name come from, do you know?
To be honest, I've no idea. It was a computer in the film 2001. There was a Native American tribe called Adelphi, or something like that. And there's a Greek thing, and I tend to go with the Greek thing. I tend to tell people that it was the place where the Greek gods went for their orgies. And people sort of think about it and say, yeah, that sounds plausible. So they believe that. But yeah, where the Greek gods went for their orgies.
And I've seen a lot of people sporting the Adelphi t-shirts now.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're on sale in Beasley's, aren't they?
Yes, that's right, and Chinese laundry.
Yeah, and there's rumour on the street that you're going into women's knickers. Is that true? And have you got a kind of fruity side that you're not telling us about?
Not at all, no. It just seemed like a good idea. Because we always need to raise money, we need extra income streams, and we're not going to get any funding from anyone. And it was just somebody's eccentric idea to do women's knickers, and I've got a suspicion it's going to be very successful as well. Yeah, I'm going to be in a ring pull can, I think. I don't know what's going to be written on the ring pull can, but people aren't initially going to be aware of what they're getting for their Christmas.
Is it true that you once turned down the Arctic Monkeys? Do you regret it if that is true? And would you turn them down again?
Depends on the circumstances. I turned down the Arctic Monkeys because by the time they were emerging on Domino, I got totally sick of the sight of Pete Doherty and the sound of the Libertines. And if you imagine being in my position here, as with any promoter, you're sifting through demo applications, tapes, CDs, sort of links on your computer.
So did they come to you?
And I've just finished that one. And when there's a phenomenon like the Libertines or Oasis before them, you do find that every demo you get is somebody trying to sound like the Libertines or Oasis before them. And it does very rapidly start to drive you insane. So at that point, the Libertines had just about driven me insane, and I didn't want to put the Arctic Monkeys on because I thought they were too tied in with that particular band. They're a good band. It later transpired that they were managed by somebody I know really well, and there were some regrets, but when they actually came to play, they played at the Silhouette on Park Street, and there were semi-naked women running up and down Park Street until 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And we couldn't have done it here really, so it was the correct decision. You know, we can't have semi-naked women running up and down De Grey Street till 5 or 6 in the morning. We wouldn't last a week if that was to happen.
So you've had the likes of Radiohead, Stone Roses, Pulp, Oasis, Green Day, Manic Street Preachers, Franz Ferdinand. I mean, can you reflect on a few of your favourite moments over the 30 years and some of the favourite acts that have played here?
Well, I also like the bands who are really good, and of course not. You know, those aren't the best bands I've seen, not by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, one of the sort of dominating characteristics of the music scene, and it hasn't changed over decades, is that there are always lots of bands who are far too good to be successful. You know, record companies are in the business of selling records rather than making people like them. So I mean, a lot of the bands you're talking about, when they sell records, people probably, you know, there are statistics that show those records on major labels by major artists. You know, a single will be played 0.3 times in its life, and an album might be played sort of 1.1 time during its life, which shows that people are buying something that ultimately they don't like, but they've been sold through marketing. So you know, I like to do the sort of stuff that isn't commercially successful. You know, I like to do the sort of bands who make albums that perhaps you don't like at first, but which get better every time you play them. And you know, which over the course of the lifetime of a CD or the recording, however you listen to it, you probably go back to it hundreds of times throughout your life. So you know, that's my definition of a good album and a successful band, and that's the type of band we tend to put on.
So do you think sometimes?
Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's some really good bands. I mean, Radiohead were a really good band, and they could still make a good album if they wanted to. You know, and you know, others were good as well. I mean, the La's were a fantastic band, and Pulp were a fantastic band. I mean, they were a fantastic band a long time before they were successful. With Pulp, they were probably better before they were successful than when they were.
What was Jarvis like?
Jarvis was always Jarvis, starring rating, and yeah, you know, I mean, he's a good bloke with great charisma and intelligence. I mean, he's now John Peel gone. He's sort of approaching the role of sort of greatest living Englishman almost. He's sort of a great English character is Jarvis, wonderful. And he's completely unchanged by fame and stuff like that, which I think is great credit to him.
So I mean, let's talk about Hull music for a second. I mean, I came last week, I think it was, Copenhagen releasing their EP. They were supported by Young Jack and the crazy guys from Cleethorpes, Kismet Riding.
Kismet Riding, that's right, yeah.
Really good night, and
it was a good night, yeah.
And obviously we've got the likes of the Black Delta Movement, Mother, Blood Sugar, Smiler have unfortunately split up.
Life. Smiler have split up, have they? Breeze. Yeah, we've got lots of good bands. I think my criticism of Hull music would be that it does lack diversity. You know, I'm constantly putting stuff on for which I can't find that even remotely compatible support. And I think there is a bit of a problem with the diversity of the music scene, and I think that's probably sprung from the old criticism of Hull as a low media profile city. I mean, you know, there's increased coverage of the local band scene these days, but at the same time it's also become a crime to make any sort of criticism of the Hull band scene, or any band, in fact. You know, we've got to talk about the band scene in totally glowing and positive terms. We've got to talk it up. But at the same time as talking it up, we ought to be developing it and trying to encourage diversity.
In an ideal world, would you like to be able to have the ability to be open at, well, early hours in the morning?
I don't think there's anything really special about being open at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I think, I think we're open during the time when a majority of people are sort of up for it, so to speak. It's not everybody who's able to be out at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And I wouldn't like to sort of have to deal with that thing of, people who have been kicked out of the pubs. And where can we go now? Or we'll go to the Adelphi sort of thing. I wouldn't like having to deal with people who've been out drinking since lunchtime, big groups of lads and stuff like that. We would certainly need bouncers, and we couldn't afford to have bouncers.
So what time is it you have to close then now?
Oh, we close sort of 11:30.
I think it works to your advantage in a way. It kind of leaves people wanting a bit more. Do you agree?
You should always get people wanting a bit more rather than having too much. Yeah. I mean, the only time we open late is New Year's Eve, and we've got that off to a fine art. You can sort of think, we'll make the most money by staying open all night on New Year's Eve, but it doesn't actually work that way, and it's very easy to make the mistake of going on too long on New Year's Eve. So if you go on too long, you might have a room full of people. There'll be nobody spending any money in the bar. There'll be people skinning up and smoking weed in the toilets. There'll be people vomiting all over. There'll be broken glass all over the place. They'll probably start fighting. And that's when you know you've paid the penalty for your greed. So you look for the signs. And we always shut things off on New Year's Eve at precisely the right time.
I want you to do a bit of reflection for us. I think one of the really successful bands that Hull has seen in the past, alongside the likes of the Paddingtons, and obviously nowadays we've got Mother who are doing really well. They've just played Reading and Leeds, a few others which I mentioned to you earlier. We had the Cliques, fronted by our friend Simon Binks.
The late Simon Binks, R.I.P.
Indeed. Do you have any fond memories of Simon that you'd like to share with us, or any fond memories of the Cliques? How did you first discover them?
Simon was a great, charismatic, smart, awkward bastard in the early days to deal with. I first probably got to know him at the age of about 16 or something. The greatest pleasures has been to sort of see people growing up. And I think Simon grew up very gracefully, as the Paddingtons did. They were awkward. In past decades, we've had to try and accelerate the growing up process. And we've done that very well. I was very sad about Simon. And having got to university, everything looked to me as though he was finding it an inspirational experience. But what happened, I don't know.
Thank you for reflecting on that. I think musically, though, it's fair to say that he had something special, not just as a musician, but as a performer.
He had a great charisma as a frontman, yeah. He had great charisma as a frontman, yeah. He had it all, he had the look. If he'd emerged at the same time as the Paddingtons, he'd have been in the Christmas cool list as Tom was from the Paddingtons. He'd have had his mugshot all over the NME as a member of the cool list. And he'd have probably found himself waking up with supermodels and stuff like that.
He'd have probably enjoyed it as well.
They might not have enjoyed... I won't say that.
Thanks again for that, Paul. So let's look to the future. It's the 29th of September when it all kicks off. correct me if I'm wrong, the big 30th anniversary, we've now announced that the Kaiser Chiefs will be headlining, supported by Black Delta Movement and Life, second or third of October.
I think it's Life and Black Delta Movement on first. Yeah. We're getting all the shit now about how the ticket distribution was unfair, but I mean, the announcement was made on telly, on the radio and in the written media, and the announcement itself was previewed 3 days earlier on television, in the newspapers and on the radio, and you can't be fairer than that, I'm afraid. Yeah, it was done as fairly as it could be.
And I mean, for an anniversary, you really are going for it. I was looking earlier; it's literally a week's. There's something on every night as of the.
Well, yeah, you know, this is the Adelphi Massive. I mean, it's been nothing to do with me, apart from the actual 1st of October itself. I mean, it's this team of people working for the Adelphi, using their contacts, who are doing it. Very little to do with me. You know, I'm an old bloke. I've got to spend all my time on personal maintenance and sort of the administrative side of things, which is, you know, quite demanding.
Do you feel Adelphi's got enough of a reputation now where the acts come to you as opposed to you sourcing the acts, or is it a mixture?
Well, I always like sourcing acts, because I always like to go for stuff that I like, and it is a bit of a sort of fascist dictatorship. Shut up, Bell. But the Adelphi for a long time has been a place that people want to play. I mean, it does have an international reputation. Yeah, you know, that's one of the reasons why quite a high percentage of people who play the Adelphi will say that it's the best gig on the tour. And it often is the best gig on the tour.
And what you was talking earlier about having a sort of dictatorship, if you like. Who were sort of your right hand men and women? Who were the people that have helped you out over the years and that help you out at the moment?
The local people. I think in local terms, I mean, you know, the Adelphi has been very, very important, and if you see the 2017 City of Culture celebrations as a recognition of a cultural renaissance in Hull over recent decades, the Adelphi has been very much a part of that, possibly even the main part. There are people who would say the main part, but it certainly hasn't been the only part.
What was your opinion of the Humber Street Sesh this year? Obviously it moved on in terms of us having to pay for it now. There's a lot of diversity.
It's a lovely event. Yeah, I thought it was great, and putting it on a sort of it's fine. I didn't spend an awful lot of time there, but I was there and I loved it. Yeah.
Was you involved in it?
No. We had a stall, and it was the Adelphi Massive who did the stall. I was there for about a couple of hours.
And what do you think the future holds for Hull and the whole music scene? And what's your opinion on our winning of the City of Culture? And are you looking forward to 2017?
I mean, I don't like a lot of fuss, to be quite honest, and so I don't look forward to things like that. I think 2017 is a great opportunity for the city, as long as we do the right thing. You know, when you become quite alarmed when you hear people talking about building 10,000 capacity indoor venues, sort of thing, because you can't see anything of cultural importance in a 10,000 capacity indoor venue. You know, these are fat men in suits who wouldn't know culture if it jumped up and bit their arses. Yeah, you know, and I've heard some nonsensical suggestions in relation to the City of Culture. You know, culture starts from the very bottom in small places, and that's where the support should begin. Forget about arenas and nonsense. We don't lack arenas. We don't need the capacity to put on Robbie Williams shows.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for your time, and I wish you well with the 30th anniversary. Thank you.
I need it.